right thing to do. And with that, I'm going to call you Mr. Speaker. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized. Ranking member.
And thank you kindly, Mr. Chairman. I want to try to respond to my friend from New Jersey, both about his meditations on the Epstein case and also about the gentlelady from Washington's amendment. It seems like some of the comments of my colleagues over on this side have struck a nerve, because a lot of your colleagues, Mr. Chairman, are acting very defensive about the whole Epstein thing. And rather than talking about the survivors, the victims, this billion-dollar global child sex trafficking ring, they want to talk about Democrats. So indulge me for a moment while I try to respond to my friend from New Jersey again, because I think we went through this before we went on our 7 or 8 week Speaker Johnson ordered vacation, paid vacation, and I had even provided him the document supporting what I was saying. But Mr. Van Drew is asking what Democrats did, saying, well, our hands are not clean either. We want to simply pose as protectors of children. We're not really interested in stopping child sex abuse. We just want to strike the pose of that. Well, that's a fairly serious charge. One of the things that I offered to my friend from New Jersey before we left was all of the materials relating to a hearing that I called as the chair of the Subcommittee on Civil Rights and Civil Liberties on the Oversight Committee, along with Chairman Cummings, in July of 2019, about Alex Acosta, who was the U.S. Attorney in the Southern District of Florida, who later became Donald Trump's Secretary of Labor. And we sent him a letter. This hearing will examine your actions as U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida in authorizing a non-prosecution agreement for Jeffrey Epstein, as well as the finding by a federal court that you violated the Crime Victims' Rights Act by keeping this non-prosecution agreement secret from the many victims of Mr. Epstein's crimes. Your testimony is critical, and so on. We had an entire hearing on this. So to the charge that somehow we weren't interested and we weren't doing anything, I say false. It has been debunked. And Mr. Van Drew, if you'd like, I can give you the exact same documents I gave you before, if you'd like. Now, let me say this. Let me say this about the Biden administration. I'll yield to you as soon as I have a moment, Mr. Van Drew. You know, it wasn't until Donald Trump that we associated what the Department of Justice did with the president who was in office. We considered the Department of Justice an independent law enforcement branch, and yet nonetheless, we see imputed to Joe Biden what is the reality under Donald Trump, which is he makes all the calls there. I mean, he literally tells them, oh, I want you to go out and investigate Bill Clinton now, or Larry Summers now, just investigate the Democrats, and they do it. And our colleagues who are on the Judiciary Committee of the U.S. House of Representatives don't say a word about it. That's astounding to me. But in any event, okay, you want to view it your way? Let's view it your way. What happened under the Biden Justice Department, under President Biden? In 2021, they prosecuted Ghislaine Maxwell. They successfully prosecuted her, and she was convicted, and in the courtroom of Judge Allie Nathan of the Southern District of New York, she was sentenced to 20 years in prison for engaging in human trafficking, child sex trafficking, solicitation, procurement across state lines, and so on. That was under the Biden Justice Department. So to Mr. Van Drew's claim President Biden didn't do anything, if you want to attribute what happened at DOJ under him to him, he certainly did do something. They convicted Ghislaine Maxwell. Then she engaged in a whole appeals process. The gentleman will remember in 2022, the Department of Justice fought that for an entire year and continued to fight it even while they continued the investigation. Well, then what did your guy do? He got into office and they summoned all the prosecutors, all the investigative files, and they killed the investigation. Despite the fact that this is a more than $1 billion international child sex trafficking conspiracy. They killed the investigation. Nothing to see here. You guys were here when Kash Patel showed up and he said, oh, well, there was nobody else implicated. Nobody else implicated with more than 1,000 victims, hundreds and hundreds of victims. These people going there, exploiting and abusing these girls and these young women, 4 banks filing suspicious activity reports after the death of Jeffrey Epstein. Afterwards, they decide to file these, saying
gentlemen
there were
yield?
more than $1 billion. Yes, I'll yield to my friend.
Just a quick point of clarification. Do you know when the Maxwell case was indicted? Was that Biden or Trump?
It was under Trump. Again, I'd like to view the Department of Justice as an independent law enforcement
agree.
entity. So yes, that was pointed out before. He was
Time-
a,
the time-
It
the
needs
time
to
of
be.
the
May I have one
gentleman-
more question?
The time of the gentleman has expired. I can yield to you for a question that you can yield then to Mr. Raskin. So I'll recognize the gentleman's time has expired. He yields back. Gentleman from North Carolina is recognized.
Mr. Raskin, I'm going to ask you a question. Just
Please.
in terms of this whole mantra, one of the concerns that I've vocalized to you is the need to protect truly innocent people in this disclosure, in this effort. And I welcome your acumen and your insights. Is it possible to have a mechanism where people who are truly bystanders, the little men, the little women in New York, in Florida, wherever, to prevent them from being released and forever tarnished in this effort? And I welcome any insights you have.
No, and I thank you for the seriousness of your question and also for your great experience as a real prosecutor. As I understand the Oversight Committee's subpoena and what the chair has worked out with Mr. Garcia, that names of victims will be redacted. So clearly they've got the power to do that. There are other names that have already come forward, Lawrence Summers or Bill Clinton. Presumably they can take care of themselves. Mr. Summers has already said he's deeply ashamed, and he ought to be deeply ashamed of his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. These are the kinds of things that should have come out a long time ago. But I'm with you. You know, you are somebody who should be involved because of your many years as a prosecutor in seeing to it that people are truly innocent whose names just show up.
Sometimes the best criminals are the hardest to catch, and they embed themselves with innocent people to make it hard to catch. And in this investigation, over the number of years, I'm worried about the waiter, the waitress, the bellman, the cab driver, the chauffeur, whoever it may be. And if we just willy-nilly release all the files, those are the people that I'm most concerned about. Larry Summers can defend himself. But it's the people who are 20, 25, 30 that don't have the resources of a Larry Summers that I'm.
And I hear you. I believe the Massey Kana bill includes such protections. I'll find the language for you in there.
Well, there is one concerning piece there that says social embarrassment is not a reason to withhold the information. And I get the spirit behind that language, but in my opinion, it's way too broad, because if there is someone who's innocent, they would not only be embarrassed, they'd be forever tarnished. And I believe that would be a reason to withhold those names. And again, I would love to talk about a mechanism to do that at some point.
I'm happy to look at the language with you to see that it's
Would
specifically.
the gentleman from North Carolina yield?
Yes, I will yield to Mr. Roy.
Yeah, I just want to echo the sentiments. And the gentleman from North Carolina, I've been having this conversation over time about our wish and desire to be able to amend language or be able to tweak it in order to ensure that that safeguard is in place, because I too have the same concern that it could be overbroad in terms of what it might mean for an innocent individual. And I would just note that, and I mean this respectfully, because I think that was a good back and forth and agreement, that the ranking member used an example out of the Oversight Committee in terms of redactions. I agree. I do think that there was a lot of good faith effort, there to do that the appropriate way. But we're talking about here, Congress is now statutorily, we're coming out and we're saying do X, right? We're going, inserting ourselves into the prosecutorial function. For all of the politics aside, our general agreement that we want the maximum transparency, but then that raises questions, right? We're not sticking ourselves into the prosecutorial function for every case. There are tens of thousands of cases right now for the Department of Justice in every United States Attorney's office. We're doing it for this one because of the egregious crimes and because of the political nature of it. But that raises questions of Congress saying, hey, release X, and then what happens? What happens with grand jury secrecy? What happens with victims that might be the innocent bystanders that the gentleman from North Carolina raises? So I would hope that in our conversations, we would, knowing that this is likely going to be voted off the floor this afternoon, that we're having those conversations and directing, hopefully, the Senate to at least address those concerns in a thoughtful and hopefully bipartisan way, because I would hope we all agree we would not want that to occur for the truly innocent individual that might be affected by it. I yield back to the gentleman from North Carolina.
Mr. Raskin, do you want to say something?
I don't even remember whose time it is anymore.
It's the gentleman from North Carolina.
No, again, just to say, look, the reason that the victims are in town is because there's been such a massive cover-up for so long that they want to see that the government is going to come clean and that we're on their side. The point you raise is a significant point about the rule of law, and we should figure out a way to embody it in there if the existing protections in the legislative language are not sufficient.
Thank you. I yield to Mr. Van Drew.
Thank you, gentleman from North Carolina. Real quickly, I understand the ranking member's point, but being concerned about a plea deal and Alex Acosta is far from revealing the thousands of pages, the thousands of people that may not been involved, and I don't mean the innocent ones. None of that was done. Let's not conflate those two issues. You had one subcommittee hearing and one issue that was relatively minor compared to what this whole huge issue is and is about. I yield back to the gentleman.
I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. Gentlelady from, I think, Pennsylvania was first, then we'll go to the gentlelady from Texas. We don't have someone on our side. Gentlelady is recognized.
Thank you. I mean, talk about conflating the issues. There is an outstanding subpoena from the Oversight Committee, which has not been complied with the White House. We don't have to have a vote. The White House could release the Epstein files today if it chose to, instead of engaging in a White House cover-up. But I think, Mr. Raskin, you had some further remarks, so I'll yield to you.
Thank you for yielding, Ms. Scanlon. Just to complete that chronology, and then I do want to say something about the gentlelady from Washington's amendment. When the Trump administration entered this year, they collected all of the files, all of the information, and all of the existing investigations, and they killed them. They said it's over. And so when the president said the other day, well, I want the Department of Justice to reopen the investigation into certain Democrats, into Clinton and Summers and so on. Of course, he was countermanding his own order, which said there was nothing to, there's something to see there, but I'm going to apply this utterly unconstitutional partisan lens to it and say, I just want an investigation of the Democrats, which, by the way, is something he shouldn't necessarily wish for because he was a Democrat during that period, shamefully, for that decade-long period when he was best friends with Jeffrey Epstein, and a lot of this was taking place. In any event, let's go to the gentlelady's amendment, which makes all the sense in the world. All she's saying is if we're going to pass Freddie's bill, but let's restore the criminal conviction requirement. I asked my staff to pull for me if they would, and of course they got it immediately. All of the offenses that require a conviction before deportation from the country, okay? And I don't even know if I've got time to go through all of them. It's basically, A to Z, attempt to commit an aggravated felony, alien smuggling, bribery of a witness, burglary, child pornography, commercial bribery, conspiracy to commit an aggravated felony, counterfeiting, crime of violence, destructive devices, drug offenses, failure to appear, and so on and so forth. Okay, so you asked the question, well, what's the big deal? Yeah, we know it's redundant. They already got Freddie's kicker, and he was deported and spent 3 days in jail. We already took care of that. He had to pay his fine. But what's the big deal? We want to have, a piece of legislation in Freddie's name. The problem is that are you going to pull the rug out from beneath dozens of these criminal offenses where a conviction is required? Do we really want to start letting unelected government bureaucrats, people in the executive branch, just describe somebody as a kicker or a terrorist or a drug smuggler? We're going to be dealing with a lot of legislation like that. This is the Judiciary Committee. We are the people who should be focused on due process, right? Everybody has a right to due process. For some people, due process isn't even enough. I mean, you think about President Trump, who has dozens of criminal felonies to his name now after he was arrested, well, not arrested, but charged, indicted, prosecuted, convicted. He had the presumption of innocence. He had unanimous grand jury requirement. He had the right to cross-examine witnesses. He had the full panoply of due process protections, and still he says he wasn't treated fairly. How about somebody who you're going to dispense with all of the due process requirements, and somebody's just going to say they're guilty? Or we think you admitted it because the way you responded to our question. I mean, come on. Let's not think so short-term and in such a partisan way. Let's think about the rules of the game that we want going forward. So I'm definitely voting no. I hope all of our colleagues who are interested in due process will not get us on this slippery slope. And I thank my friend from Pennsylvania for yielding, and I go back to you. Ms. Scanlon, I yield back to you.
Thank you, and I would yield back.
Gentlelady yields back. Gentleman from California is recognized. And we'll come to